Two presidents, one admired, one feared, complete opposites. At least, that's what most people think. But behind the speeches and the headlines, something happened that almost no one noticed. Something quiet, easy to miss, yet surprisingly important. This is the secret weapon Obama handed to Trump, an unexpected link between two men who seemed to share nothing at all. And what Obama quietly built is now being carried out by Trump in ways most people never even realized. To understand why any of this happened, you have to look at the world Obama inherited. A world still shaped by 9/11. A world where threats weren't armies anymore, but individuals hiding across mountains, villages, and deserts. Sending soldiers into those places was risky, unpredictable, and often led to more chaos. So the idea of something precise started to sound like progress, a tool that could track people, follow patterns, and stop danger before it ever reached American soil. Inside government, this growing framework eventually became known as the Disposition Matrix, a code name for something meant to be a clean solution in a chaotic world. It wasn't presented as a weapon. It was presented as a plan, a way to prevent the next major attack quietly, precisely, and far from public view. But plans have a way of growing bigger than anyone expects, which brings us inside the room where it all happened. To see how that system worked, you have to step into a part of the White House almost no one ever sees. A quiet room buried deep inside the West Wing. Not glamorous, not dramatic, just calm, controlled, and eerily ordinary. This is where certain Tuesday meetings took place. Around the table sat Obama's closest national security team, intelligence chiefs, military commanders, counterterrorism advisors, and legal experts. Not a big crowd, just the people trusted to make decisions no one else wanted to touch. And at the head of that table sat Barack Obama, not the charismatic speaker from campaign rallies, but the quiet decision maker most people never saw. In front of him were slim folders filled with baseball cards, quick snapshots of people half a world away, their faces, their routines, their movements. Some seemed like obvious threats. Others were uncertain, blurry, and much harder to read. This process later became known to the public as the kill list, though no one in the room ever used that phrase. To them, it was simply the review. Quiet, focused, and always heavy. And here is the first twist that doesn't quite fit the image many people have of Obama. During his presidency, hundreds of drone strikes were approved, not because he wanted more war, but because he believed drones were cleaner, more precise, less destructive than deploying troops. At least, that was the idea. But ideas live on paper. Reality lives out there, in the places where these decisions land. And that's where this story takes its first unexpected turn. Take Yemen, 2013. A wedding convoy was driving through the countryside. Families in white clothing, drums, laughter, gifts tied with ribbon. A moment every culture understands. People coming together for joy. Above them, a drone circled, quiet, steady, watching a pattern the passengers knew nothing about. Then, in seconds, everything changed. Missiles hit the convoy. 12 people died. Many more were injured. And a celebration turned into something no family should ever experience. The convoy wasn't targeted because it was a wedding. It was targeted because the system misread it. Because the pattern matched the route of a suspected militant. And the drone only knew movement, not meaning. It wasn't a story anyone connected with Obama. It didn't look like something the Peace Prize president would be behind. And maybe That's why this moment stayed in the shadows, not hidden, but ignored, because it didn't fit the picture people had of him. Moments like this reveal a truth people rarely confront, that even leaders we admire leave trails we never fully see. And that wedding wasn't the only sign that this system wasn't as precise as it looked. There were other moments too, like the 16-year-old American boy, Abdulrahman al-Awlaki, killed while eating at a roadside restaurant. He wasn't on any list. He wasn't a target. He was simply there. Across Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia, hundreds of civilians died in strikes that were never meant for them. Quiet reminders that even a clean weapon can make deeply human mistakes. These moments didn't make headlines. They didn't stick to Obama's image, but they raised simple questions that echoed through the entire program. Questions about how much control anyone truly had over a weapon this powerful. And those questions were still unanswered when the entire system was quietly handed to Donald Trump. But before we get to what Trump does with it, we need to go back to how Obama tried to keep this weapon under control. Even with those doubts growing, Obama wasn't ignoring them. Inside the White House, he tried to tighten the system wherever he could. Stricter rules, better intelligence, more caution. He didn't want a reckless weapon. He wanted something stable, something predictable. But systems like this rarely stay small, and this one didn't. Each year it expanded. New regions on briefings, new names, new information arriving faster than any one person could keep up with. What started as a precise tool was slowly becoming something larger, something moving with its own momentum. Obama still paused over the hardest decisions. He still asked, "How sure are we?" But the pace was speeding up, and no president could slow it down alone. Because once a system like this is built, with teams, tools, and global reach, it doesn't end when a presidency does. It keeps moving. It waits. It grows. And eventually, Obama stepped away, leaving behind a system still running, still expanding, and still full of unanswered questions. And that's the moment Donald Trump walked in and took the controls. When Trump entered the Oval Office in 2017, he didn't just inherit the usual responsibilities of a president. He inherited a fully built, fully functioning weapon, one that had been shaped, refined, and tested over 8 years. And unlike Obama, Trump didn't want long meetings, long folders, or slow deliberation. He wanted speed. He wanted decisions. He wanted results. Where Obama preferred careful steps, Trump preferred quick moves. Where Obama wanted limits, Trump wanted freedom. And almost immediately, the pace of the system changed. He loosened some of the restrictions Obama had insisted on. He gave more authority to commanders in the field. And the careful review that once took place inside a small West Wing room started happening faster, with fewer layers in between. Not out of malice, but because Trump saw the system differently. To him, it wasn't fragile. It wasn't something that needed constant supervision. It was a tool that should be used without hesitation. And in a way, that's what makes this connection between the two presidents so unexpected. Two men with opposite styles, opposite images, opposite reputations, yet linked by the same weapon. Obama built it carefully, trying to surround it with rules. Trump took it as it was and used it with the freedom the system allowed. Maybe neither intended it to become what it is today. Maybe both were reacting to the world they inherited. But the fact remains, a secret, precise, expanding weapon bridged the space between two of the most different presidents in modern American history. And whether you agree with how they used it or not, this story reveals something bigger, something about power, technology, in the quiet systems that keep running long after the cameras move on. A reminder that sometimes the most important decisions aren't made in speeches, but in small rooms, behind closed doors, far from the public eye, and that the weapons built by one leader can shape the choices of the next.